Good evening and welcome to the NewsHour Agenda. I'm Madhavdas. Viewers, as China is looking to flex its muscles in the Indo-Pacific, India is also trying to send out a clear message. One, that it stands with its neighbors in its time of need. But two, the fact that no rhetoric should undermine diplomatic relations. On the sidelines of the BIMSTEC summit, Prime Minister Modi has also met Bangladesh's chief advisor Mohammed Yunus and clearly expressed India's position on recent developments. In a strong message to Bangladesh, the Prime Minister emphasized that any rhetoric that undermines diplomatic relations should be avoided, also highlighting India's concerns about the safety and security of minorities, including Hindus. He reiterated the importance of maintaining border security as well. Remember, this comes days after Mohammed Yunus asked China to use Bangladesh as a gateway to extend Chinese economy in 7 northeastern states of India, and that remark had triggered a flurry of criticism back here in India.
7 states of India, eastern part of India, called 7 Sisters, they are landlocked country, landlocked region of India. They have no way to reach out to the ocean. We are the only guardian of the ocean for all this region. So this opens up a huge possibility. So this could be an extension of the Chinese economy, build things, produce things, market things, bring things to China, bring it out to the whole rest of the world. That's a production house for you. So that's the opportunity we should seize and we should implement, we should get it done.
Now, after concluding his Thailand visit, the Prime Minister arrived in Sri Lanka a short while ago, where he was received by 5 top ministers at the airport at 9 p.m. in the night, despite heavy rains, which goes on to show, the kind of importance that Sri Lanka accords to India. Multiple members of the Indian diaspora were also seen over there. All right, I believe we have live pictures coming in from the airport there. Varshini is with us. Varshini, take us through what's really happening. The Indian diaspora there in huge numbers to welcome the Prime Minister.
Absolutely, yes, madam. Right now you can see this grand welcome. Prime Minister is receiving. He's now arrived at a private hotel in Colombo, and he's been greeting and meeting all the people. Like you can see, chanting. There are the Indian diaspora that is gathered here has been chanting Modi Modi chants, and he's been literally speaking and he's shaking his hands with every single person who's arrived here and who's standing here. And people are, whatever excitement they had before meeting him has only doubled now, is what we can witness here. Doubled. See, the people are saying that it's not just doubled, it's more than double. How do you feel?
Many of them meet the Prime Minister, Varshini. If you can speak to them and ask them what it was like.
So how did you feel before meeting him and after meeting him right now?
Okay. Varshini, I think there's some audio problem when you're trying to speak to others, but at the moment, take us through what exactly the Prime Minister has in schedule for tomorrow.
Yes, definitely yes. At the moment, tomorrow morning, the Prime Minister will be first attending the Independence Memorial, and he will be participating in the events there. And after that, there is a meetings, back-to-back meetings that has been planned, and this is a private meeting with the President and other higher officials of the Sri Lankan government. Post that, there is going to be a press briefing regarding what was discussed and what kind of decisions were made and agreements have been signed. So far, we are given to understand that trade agreements and defense agreements, and the Sri Lankan government is also hoping to have some infrastructure projects and agreements also that can be taken forward for the development of the Sri Lankan country, is what we are given to understand. And beyond that, in the evening, he's going to the Indian Peacekeeping Force memorial that is situated here, and he will be paying homage to the martyrs. And after that, on the morning of the 6th, he will be traveling to Anuradhapura, and there he will be going to a Buddhist temple, and he will be be offering prayers there, and he will be inaugurating a plaque there, and there are several other things that is planned during this event as well. So therefore, it is a very short visit, but it is completely packed, and the Prime Minister is expected to move to Rameshwaram after that. So it is definitely a very crucial 2 days that we are looking at for now.
All right. Thanks so much for that update, Devashini. We'll keep coming back to you for more updates through the day tomorrow as well as day after. Let's quickly open this up to our guests now.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
All right, joining us for more, we have Veena Sikri, former diplomat. In fact, she has represented India in Bangladesh in the past as well. We have Lalit Ambardar, activist, as well joining us. Mir Mustafizur Rahman is a Bangladesh journalist with us on the panel. Also joining us is Barrister Meeti Sanjana, who is an advocate of the Supreme Court of Bangladesh. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. But let me start with you. Veena Sikri, a meeting where there was a lot of suspense. The Indian side had not confirmed it until the last moment. So there was some amount of suspense about whether that bilateral would happen or not. But given the fact that it's happened, the Prime Minister has made it in absolutely clear, in no uncertain terms, about the concerns that India has, particularly the attacks on minorities in Bangladesh that have been taking place in recent months. How do you look at the kind of meeting that has taken place and the statements that have come out after?
Well, I think it was an important meeting. You're right that it took place after a lot of uncertainty, and certainly the Indian government had every reason to be seriously concerned about what the Yunus regime had been, had been up to, as it were, in the last 6 months. And you mentioned, you're right about the attacks on minorities. It was something that the Yunus regime has been completely denying, that it didn't happen, it doesn't happen, and this is completely exaggerated, and it's only for political reasons, as though it's justified to kill people for political reasons. But even so, it is clear that the attacks on the minorities have continued all these months and are still continuing, and there is no let-up at all, and this has been a matter of great concern. But beyond that, I think the focus of the Prime Minister in his discussions with President Mohammed Yunus and in the readout by the Indian government is very clear that India is looking for a democratic, a stable, a peaceful, prosperous and inclusive Bangladesh. Now, none of these 5 factors exist right now. There is no democracy at all to speak of in Bangladesh, because there is a complete anarchy. People there are using the word anarchy to describe the situation in Bangladesh. The economy is in complete doldrums, and there is great, great uncertainty. Factories are closing, jobs are going, inflation is high. It's a great problem, but it's a lack of democracy which is causing a lot of the disturbance, because the media has been completely gagged, and there is no free information, no freedom of speech in Bangladesh of any kind. But now that all these issues have been laid on the table, and I think the reference to rhetoric was very important, because we've seen that the President Mohammed Yunus indulged in this rhetoric when he was in China, addressing Chinese businessmen, talking about the northeastern states of India as though they are available as an extension of the Chinese economy.
Absolutely.
So I think it's an important point to see, and to note that when these issues have been highlighted to the Bangladesh chief advisor, that what will happen now, and we certainly hope that there would be a considerable improvement in this.
Let me bring in Barrister Meeti Sanjana on that. Barrister Meeti Sanjana, this meeting is not happening in a vacuum. There's been a lot of controversy in the past, starting from Sheikh Hasina's presence in New Delhi, etc. But the larger point is this, that there are persecution of minorities happening in Bangladesh. That is one issue of concern. But you cannot have a situation where Mr. Yunus on one hand says that I can't believe a situation where India and Bangladesh don't have good ties, and then goes to China and says what he said, that China should extend into the 7 sisters or the northeast of India, almost, talking as though he wants to break up India into 2 parts, a rhetoric that we've seen come in from, people of extreme Islamist views. And the larger question is that one will have to be responsible. If you're in a responsible position as Mr. Yunus is, you don't go around making such statements which can cause a diplomatic flurry. And I think that is the larger issue that has been pressed upon in terms of importance as well. Meeti Sanjana.
Sorry, I don't get your question.
Did you hear what he said in China? Are you aware of the statements that Mr. Yunus made in China, which caused a huge amount of controversy about China extending into Northeast? And do you believe that as somebody who's in a position of power, he should be making such statements in the first place?
Well, as you know that he's a global business leader, and he's the father of microcredit and social business. So what he said in China, I think it's a complete fair business proposition, and he has just stated the fact. There is no
Extending to the Northeast.
Yeah.
China extending into the Northeast is a fair business proposition, ma'am. By what stretch of imagination? Because he's talked about India's seven sisters. He asked for China to come into that region. How is that a fair business proposition? You cannot challenge your neighbor's sovereignty and then say that's a fair business proposition.
You see, as today's meeting, Bangladesh is very much looking forward to going forward to a positive direction, and the move that has actually taken today, it is basically in a positive direction, and I actually did not expect this sort of discussion today. So I'm really very, very disappointed. As you know that for months, our chief advisor, Dr. Mohammed Yunus, he has been trying to establish a diplomatic channels with India, and finally that long awaited meeting took place today, and the meeting itself, I believe, is a victory for both the countries, with everything that has actually happened in last 7 months. And Bangladesh, we are actually looking forward to a very positive relationship based on trust, faith, and mutual respect.
Madam Sanjana, may I just say this? The Indian Foreign Secretary, Mr. Mistry, has been to Bangladesh. There's no question of diplomatic channels not being there. So, I think that I would slightly differ with you on that. But I'll allow Veena Sikri to come in, who's represented India in Bangladesh in the past. Is this a fair assessment, Ms. Sikri?
Absolutely not. I'm absolutely shocked beyond measure to say somebody saying that Mohammed Yunus said the right thing in China. This is absolutely amazing to think that people in Bangladesh can think about like that the Northeast is not an sovereign integral part of India. I think this is the kind of mindset that Professor Mohammed Yunus is operating in, which show that they do not want good relations with India. Actually, Bangladesh has never expressed any interest in the last 6 months in coming to India or in having discussions with Indian leaders. There was, everybody went to China. Tawhi Hussain went to China, Mohammed Yunus went to China, everybody's going there. Not at all an interest. It was India who took the initiative in sending our foreign secretary to China to hold discussions. And on top of the statement that has been made about the Northeast, there is also news coming out of China today and out of Bangladesh that Bangladesh has given a contract to China to build a modern Air Force base in Lalmonirhat, which is very near the Siliguri corridor, and to ask Pakistan to implement the project. So this is a complete violation of all India's security red lines, and it certainly will not be allowed to go ahead because
very shocking, very shocking. And in fact, let me bring in Mr. Rahman on this. Mr. Rahman, you can't float in both the boats. If you on one hand want cooperation through the BIMSTEC platform, then you have to respect that regional grouping. You can't have a situation where you want for security purpose the entire, Bay of Bengal region, all the countries cooperating together. Then you go to China, ask them to build an Air Force base for you, ask Pakistan to operate it for you. I'm sure the public memory in Bangladesh would be very much fresh as to what happened and what Pakistan did in Bangladesh, and you actually call the day that Pakistan walked out of Bangladesh as your liberation day. Have people forgotten that now in Bangladesh?
Thank you very much. In fact, the more I hear from Honorable Ambassador Sikri, I am more surprised because I knew her as a very liberal mind. But since the meeting today, this is an ice melting and event which would, I think, pave the way for restoring and rebuild the trust which we feel that was strained after the 5th August mass upsurge here. But the Prime Minister Narendra Modi has rightly pointed out that there is a social media which is creating some problem, to restore this confidence. And I am very surprised that a section of Indian media, both in India and Bangladesh, they are basically the main obstacle for restoring this kind of confidence and the golden ties between these two countries. Because when something positive is being happened, you have just...
Mr. Rahman, the two countries have had very close ties. There are historical ties, there are cultural ties. And beyond that, may I remind you that it was India that wrote a letter to Mr. Yunus on the day that he took charge. So, one second, Mr. Rahman. The fact that no one from Bangladesh has expressed interest in coming to New Delhi is something that Ms. Sikri mentioned, and also the very fact that it is not social media that operates in a vacuum. It is statements of Mr. Yunus that have been sort of amplified by social media. So it starts with Mr. Yunus's comment.
Because what I told you earlier, that our officials have clearly told the Hindu Daily in India that Bangladesh requested formally for such an invitation from Indian side, so that Mr. Yunus could travel to Delhi first before China, but India did not respond. That is our version, official version from the Chief Advisor's office, and they told it to the Hindu
Okay,
Daily.
Ms. Sikri and then Lalit. Ms.
Side,
Sikri, a quick response. Okay, you made a comment. Let Ms. Sikri comment on that, and then I go across to Lalit Ambardar.
I think it is absolutely clear that this is not at all known to the Indian side that there was any interest by Professor Mohammed Yunus in visiting India, firstly. Secondly, I would like to point out to all my colleagues from Bangladesh that what is important is action, not mere words. And this is what our Prime Minister has said about rhetoric. You know, you use rhetoric, you do your actions, you go to China, you give them projects, even the Teesta project. And you know that the former Prime Minister had clearly said that because of India's interest in this region, the Teesta project should go to India. But of course, the Mohammed Yunus government has to say it has to go to China because they believe in not observing India's security interests at all. They do not believe in keeping in India's security interests in mind. They believe in creating more tension with India. And first of all, this is not even a constitutional regime in Bangladesh. How is Mohammed Yunus saying in BIMSTEC that we are mandated to do reforms? Mandated by whom? The interim government is mandated to do reforms. Interim governments are only there for elections, but even then,
I think that's a fair point. Mr. Rahman, you have somebody who's functioning in a vacuum in an interim government, certainly not elected by the people. He's been appointed as an interim leader. So, you know, are you going to have such a person make such critical decisions as far as Bangladesh's foreign policy, which could have huge impact on the future of Bangladesh's history?
First thing is that I am just want to respond to the Teesta issue. And the Honorable Ambassador clearly mentioned that everything depends on the action. And just look at the action. Teesta was supposed to be signed between India and Bangladesh 15 years ago. But India did not make any progress. That was not our fault. So let us decide what we will do about the Teesta.
So you're going to bring in China. How will bringing in China help, sir? How will bringing in China help?
Then it's our decision. Then it's if India did
no,
not
but then if you're going to take a bilateral treaty and bring in an uninterested party, then obviously there are going to be repercussions. Lalit Ambardar, you know, this is the whole point, because the region where Teesta flows is also the region near the chicken's neck. And we know how characters such as Sharjeel Imam have expressed their desire to see that area and the communications line there snapped and divide India literally, which is what Mr. Yunus's statement is also being interpreted as.
Madhav, I think, you know, it has come so-called independence, 7.5 decades after independence, the mess created by the Nehru and Congress's Himalayan blunders, Narendra Modi has to clean it up. Now, tell me one thing. You talked about chicken neck, for example, right? How was it that East Pakistan and West Pakistan were created thousands of kilometers apart, but we could not secure a respectable and non-vulnerable corridor to Northeast? That's one point, and we have to live with chicken neck. Similarly, on the west, we did so many blunders, left Nankana Sahib and Nankana Sahib and Kartarpur corridor to Pakistan. And second, which is very important, what we did was Liaquat Ali, Nehru and Liaquat Ali Pact that saw Hindus and Sikhs abandoned to Pakistani Islamist mercy. And now we have to do it with CAA, that we have to see as a result the population of Hindus in East Pakistan or Bangladesh is reduced from 22% to 8%. And Pakistan, they are reduced to just 1.5%. That's the continued genocidal persecution the Hindus are suffering there. And I feel very sorry, we have been very soft. This time, my government has been very soft as compared to what Trump's talked about. So recently when this Gabbard was here, Sunita Gabbard was there, she talked about it. They talked more vehemently than us. Hindu lives must matter. The genocide of Hindus is continuing in Bangladesh. I am very sorry. Even our media has refused to cover it up anymore. And about Chinese, you see what's happening in Pakistan, in Bangladesh today. Unfortunately, you know what's happening is the Chinese stooges and Pakistani Razakars operating, Jamaat Razakars operating there in Bangladesh today. And I think we have to be very, very careful. We have to be very, very careful. We have to stress. We have to be assertive and make. And one thing I'm glad we are not calling Yunus as leader or a president of Bangladesh. He's being
he's an
referred
interim leader. I
officially
think
as
everybody knows he's an interim leader. I think everybody knows he's an interim leader, and I think that is a fact that everyone is aware of. The larger question, Barrister Meeti Sanjana, that many have is that if Bangladesh wants to take relations forward with India, it's a two-way street. You can't be seen hobnobbing with China. At the same time, trying to pacify India. Bangladesh will have to be very clear about its position.
Sorry, can you please repeat?
No, I just said that Bangladesh cannot, on one hand, be invoking China in the context of India. We discussed the Northeast, we discussed the Teesta, which Mr. Rahman also referred to. Bangladesh will have to be very clear. Will have to choose what it wants to do and what is in its own interest.
Well, I think today's meeting agenda, what they have discussed, it is very important to actually, know for everyone. So I think the detail of the today's meeting, what they have discussed, it has not been released yet. But I think today's meeting, it was a very crucial for both the countries for collective economic progress. And we expect that this will actually thaw the ice that has actually formed over the time. And we also believe that, it will actually improve the relationships so that in future, more substantial
well, the Prime Minister has tweeted post the meeting expressing India's concern when it comes to the treatment of minorities. And I think that is one very, very important issue as far as India is concerned. Excuse me. We'll have to leave it there for the moment. Veena Sikri, Lalit Ambardar, Mir Mustafizur Rahman, as well as Barrister Meeti Sanjana, thanks so much for joining us this evening. There's some breaking news coming in at the moment.